Joseph Turok surfaced from an uneasy sleep, with the taste of gunpowder still clinging to his thoughts. Echoes of a brutal mission against a Colombian cartel replaying behind his eyes. When he opened them, he was no longer in the jungle, but aboard a cold military transport, cutting silently towards a distant, terraformed world. The men around him kept their distance, their quiet resentment toward his former ties to Wolfpack lingering in every glance. Turok pushed it aside and focused on the task ahead, the capture of Roland Kane, the mentor who had once shaped him. There was no warning when the attack came. Fire cut through the hull as the ship was struck from orbit, metal screaming while gravity seized control. The crash scattered the wreckage across the planet's surface and hurled Turok back into darkness. In the silence that followed, memory took hold again, dragging him into another dream, this one older and deeper. The moment he had first been pulled into Wolfpack. When he finally clawed his way back to consciousness, the wreckage around him still burned. He and Henderson staggered free of the staggered hull and stepped onto the alien soil, only for a Utah raptor to burst from the brush. Henderson's cry was cut short before Turok could even raise his weapon. The planet had welcomed them with teeth. Moving on alone, Turok crossed paths with Slade, whose stare carried an old, festering hatred tied to his brother's death. Words were few, trust even less. Their survival focused them forward together. Their path wound past the thunderous presence of a towering Tyrannosaurus Rex, through the cold machinery of an MG outpost, across a valley crawling with predators, and over the scattered remains of another doomed crash site, until at last they reached the remnants of their unit. Relief did not last. A desperate rescue attempt unraveled into accusation and violence, spraying what little unity Whiskey Company had left. In that chaos, one of Turok's former allies loosened an arrow that struck Cowboy, turning suspicion into open hostility. When nerves shattered, Logan handed down his judgment. Turok would retrieve the lost comm unit, and he would not go alone. Foster and Gonzalez were ordered to accompany him, less as support than punishment. The mission already heavy with the promise of something going terribly wrong. One by one, the men sent with Turok were claimed, some by the relentless sweep of MG patrols, others dragged screaming into the jaws of the planet's ancient predators. Survival narrowed until it was only him, moving through the shadow of gunfire, driven forward by instinct, more than hope. Then it emerged again, the Tyrannosaurus, her thunderous steps shaking the ground as her brood closed in around him. Turok fought with desperation and bouldered on fury, until at last the beast withdrew, and he was left standing alone in the settling dusk. By nightfall, he limpered back towards camp, carrying nothing but exhaustion. There was no rest waiting for him. Kane's forces struck without warning, the ambush erupting in tracer fire and mechanical thunder. At its center crawled a monstrous war machine, a vast spider-like tank, its guns cutting through cover as if they were paper. In that battle, Cole fell, and whatever remained of order collapsed with him. The camp was lost. Turok, Slade, and Carter had only one choice left: reach her nearby MG complex and steal a ship off this world. They pushed forward. Carter was seized in a sudden eruption of colossal, burrowing insects. They dragged him beneath the surface before help could even reach him. This attack shattered their formation, and in that confusion, Slade and Turok were torn apart, each forced down into the suffocating dark below. Turok lay unconscious. Sleep did not bring him peace, however. He saw Kane again, carrying out judgment after a mission gone wrong. An innocent girl stood where no enemy should have been, and Kane's blade fell without hesitation. Turok woke with the echo of it still burning in his chest. The caves around him were cold, their sounds broken only by distant movement in the stone. He pressed forward towards the winding dark until he found Slade among the shadows, unwilling to die in this place. The reunion was cut brief, but the emergence of something vast and ancient. An eel-like creature coiling through the subterranean water, its body glistening in the dim light. The fight was brutal. but Turok ended it with a final, desperate attack, leaving the carcass drifting in the stillness behind them. Together they climbed back towards the surface, toward the air and lights and whatever remained of their shattered unit. Along the way, Slade shifted, resentment giving way, if not to forgiveness, then at least to understanding. War had stripped too much from both of them to carry old hatred much further. They found the broken remnants of Whiskey Company. The survivors, with nowhere else to go, forced their way towards another MG stronghold, chasing the fragile hope of a ship that could carry them off this world. And that cost came quickly. Logan fell beneath the relentless barrage of a helicopter gunship. Jericho's end followed soon after. By the time the guns fell silent, the path forward was thinner than ever, held together only by those few who were still breathing. Turok, Shepard, Reese, Cowboy, and Slade forced their way into the MG base. Inside they found the truth waiting for them. Their only known way home had been destroyed. With no other choice, they set their sights on a much larger installation that might still hold a ship. They split up to reach it, crossing a volcanic wasteland that killed as surely as any enemy. Reese didn't survive the journey. Grimes struck from hiding and killed him with a single arrow to the eye, leaving the others to continue without him. The remaining 4 eventually reached the massive base and carried out a sabotage of its generator, hoping the chaos would give them a chance to escape. Kane and Grimes arrived before they could get away. The last members of Whiskey were subdued. Kane killed Cowboy without hesitation. Moments later, the sabotage generator detonated. The explosion destroyed much of the base and killed Grimes, but Kane managed to escape into the chaos, leaving the conflict unfinished. The last 3 survivors of Whiskey fled the collapsing complex as fire and debris tore through the structure behind them. Beyond the wreckage, they found a starship still intact, damaged, but capable of leaving the planet. For Shepard and Slade, escape meant survival. For Turok, however, he had something unfinished. When he saw Kane moving through the ruins, the past closed in around him. Everything that had led him here. Without a word, Turok turned back. He followed his former mentor into the dying corridors of the base. Their final confrontation came without speeches. Blades were drawn. The fight was close and personal, ending only when Turok drove his knife home and left Kane still among the ruins that had consumed everything else. The silence that followed was brief. The T-Rex returned, drawn by the violence. Turok met her alone, nearly spent and wounded. The struggle was raw, brutal, fought at an arm's length against something older and stronger than he was. In the end, survival came down to a single act of force. He drove a live grenade into her wounded eye and forced himself clear before the blast shattered bone and ended the fight. By the time Shepard and Slade reached him, the noise of the battle had faded into the wind. They pulled Turok aboard. With nothing remaining on the surface below, they reignited the engines, and they left the planet. And for the first time since the crash, the survivors of Whiskey Company were heading home.